Sweet. So how's it
Awesome.
going, everyone? Back for another week. Yeah, we're going to talk about something that is obviously happening out there in the world. And I think I've realized for myself, I'm trying to play too much host mode. So me and Pussy are just going to chuck some questions, have a jam around them,
hmm
and talk about them and go from there. But our thing this week, we're going to talk about the tariffs. I don't know if you guys have been watching a lot of content online or on the news around this tariffs that are happening all over. I have a somewhat understanding of what it all means, but we're just going to kind of break it down and especially talk about how it impacts us. But yeah, bro.
I guess for tariffs, we don't want to get too political around this space. We don't want to get too technical as well. So we're going to break it down simply what tariffs is. So basically, it's when one country charges extra fees for stuff that's being brought in from another country. That's on all imports, and it's more physical products as well. Anything that goes across the borderline that gets charged extra fees just to get into the country. Does that make sense?
Yeah, bro.
Mm,
Makes sense. And I think obviously, it's easy for someone that is probably in the product space to kind of, see how that may affect them. But for myself, that kind of operates as a service and works with other service. First looked at these tariffs like, yeah, it's all good, it provides services, it's not really going to impact me. But then you consider, what clients do you have? And for myself, I work with people that are in the product space. So what that does in terms of change their own mindset around how they're going to act, because it could take some of their, potential money that they would give to me and has to now go into, maybe potentially those fees. So it does
yeah.
have an effect on all of us, even to the tools that we now using, right? It may raise the prices for some of the devices that we have, a lot of other things. So if it doesn't directly affect you, it's definitely going to indirectly affect you, depending on, what kind of comes of this.
And another way to look at it, bro, is like a spider web. That's how I like to look at it. So even though here in New Zealand, we're not in the US, the world's economy, but like a big spider web, what happens in one corner will still shake us on the other side.
Mm,
So imagine if you're a tradie, if you've got a business in construction, right? Even though you don't directly buy your materials from overseas, but your supplier does. Like,
mm,
like you're buying. I mean, like here in New Zealand, you can source locally, like timber, steel. But let's say, you're a business who's using a supplier who imports some of those goods from overseas. You might start to realize, the tools, the screws, the metals are starting to get a little bit more expensive now. So you
mm.
can see because the supplier are having to buy it a little bit more expensive now because of the tariffs. Guess who they're going to pass that cost on to?
Yeah, exactly.
Us, right? And even though that's just a product, even though that's just a product, if you're a service-based business, like especially like with me and Tyrone, we purchase a lot of tools like AI, Canva, and I'm sure a lot of us use these tools as well. Your website, you know, the suppliers that you're using, like Canva and that, they still gotta buy products and servers and all that to grow and host all these things for us, right? If it's costing them more, right, to run these servers and to grow it, guess who they're going to pass that cost on to? Like, you might start
Hmm.
to realize the subscription costs are getting a little bit more expensive now, right?
Hmm.
So basically, what I'm saying here, the point is, it's like a spider web, bro. Like, even though, there's something happening in that side of the world, it's still going to have a ripple effect on your business. Okay?
Yeah.
Mm,
Hideout. Yeah, agree. And yeah, I think the more obvious thing, right, for all of us that have experienced it, going through COVID, right, something happened total across the another side of the world, and it made its way here and had its, impact in many different ways. And not to say that this is COVID tariff and trying to kind of make a metaphor there, but I'm trying to say that these impacts that happen across are going to show up in many different ways that might not be obvious right now.
mm,
But to your point, you might see inflation, which is what it's called, cost starting to grow, and you're like, now I'm going to
exactly.
have to make different decisions because these things that were a bit more cheaper were easy to make. Now I'm going to have to think, do I need this subscription? Do I need to have this service? And your clients will be kind of thinking, around the same note as well. Um, and I guess for me, bro, like what's been really interesting, if I had to be totally honest, is actually watching a lot of TikToks and having a lot of the Chinese manufacturers talk about, actually what they charge, like what it actually costs to actually
Mm,
how much some of these brands are charging. Because let's be totally honest, we're all in business, and part of this is looking at costs and inflation and what that's going to mean, but also part of this is looking at like sharks. It really shows how much a brand's worth to people, right? You've got these luxury items that are being made for you know less not say nothing, but less than nothing. And then you got brands that are charging so crazy. I watch all the Hermes bags and all that. I was like, man, like you just kind of it makes you rethink around, what does it mean to actually be in business, and how much you charge. Now, I'm not going out there to say everyone should charge exorbitantly, but we're already getting charged already quite significant, and these things are just going to grow. So yeah, that's been interesting for me, bro.
yeah. That's really interesting, eh? Yeah. The whole trend around exposing those big brands like Gucci and all of that, which were like made in China, the actual products themselves, and then shipped to Europe, and in France and all of that, and what they do with those products is that they slap their logos and their brands on it, and then they sell it to the US.
Yep,
So little do people know that these products actually made in China, but then actually branded in another country
that
in
country.
Europe and then shipped at expensive price. I was like, that is exposing. But there's two things that stand up for me on that as I was watching those videos. Is one, that shows the power of branding,
Hmm.
the power of branding, and people are willing to pay for what they believe is the real value, right? And it's all about status, it's all about prestige, it's all about how I feel about myself when I buy this product or when I wear it. Like, that's the power of branding, and also community. Like, if you see another person with a Nike, Adidas, be like, oh, yeah, like we both got money because we bought this product, but I can, he must be a hard worker, or must have a lot of money or something. But like that's. But then on the other side of the coin, it's like, also how social media can break a brand. I
Yeah,
thought
true.
that's crazy. Like you can have people, especially China, man. They're not gonna go easy, bro. If anything, it makes China look better, because they were the ones, the originators of those actual products. But yeah, it just shows the power of social media and the power of branding as well. It's crazy. It's crazy, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hard out. No, it's been interesting, and I'll be honest, I found myself doom scrolling, looking at some of the stuff, and I think whatever people's opinions are about this, is that there are learnings to take out of what we do as business owners around, yes, there's about providing a service, but someone could provide a lesser service of you, but have a better brand. Now, I'm not trying to say you should just push for a brand, but if you have both of those, right, the potential to charge whatever it is a lot, it's seen a lot easier because they trust what you deliver, and also the brand speaks for itself, right? So, yeah, a lot of learnings you can take from all of those tariffs, if it's not just the whole what it's going to do in terms of cost. So, I guess for me, bro, like for yourself, like what's one thing that you feel that you'd like to share that people should like really consider,
Mm.
through this time.
Yeah, look, we don't want to scare everyone like with the whole tariffs thing. It's just important to be mindful, especially if it affects your business with the increase in cost, especially if you're sourcing things from overseas. It's important because the last thing you want is to be caught off guard, and your expenses are going up and then your profits are going down. So I think if I think plan ahead. You always got to be planning ahead anyway as a business owner. Think about your pricing and start talking to suppliers. Like, if you know your prices might go up, can you stock up now
Mm,
on a good price? Right? Don't go crazy. But if you realize, look, my supplier, this particular thing that I always buy on a consistent basis, there's a risk that it's going to go up because it's imported from wherever, right? Can you buy up a little bit extra, right? Or can you switch to a local supplier who's
Mm,
not going to be affected? Right? I was talking to one of my clients, like Fletcher Steel, for example, and we were talking about, do you import your raw materials from overseas? No, they're all made here in New Zealand. The steel, their supplier is New Zealand steel, so it's because Fletcher Reinforcing buys it from New Zealand steel, and then they turn it to whatever. In New Zealand steel, they get all that raw material here in New Zealand. It's all mined here. It's all from here, made here. So that's less risk because you're not importing it from another country. Another thing I would probably say is think about your pricing as well. Okay, because there's only so much you can do with the cost of your materials and that you get from suppliers. You can only control that. You can't control that, right? So if costs go up, are your services still profitable?
mm,
Right? You might have to tweak your offer. You
mm,
might have to tweak your offer. You might have to shorten your package or offer a lighter version. Like for education, we had these long programs that were like 10 weeks or 3 days. Now we have 2 hour workshops that we sell.
mm.
It's a little bit more affordable and it's a lighter version. People can still get value from it. Right? We have heaps of 2 hour workshops that people can buy. You can go check it up on our website. It's called our Skill Up workshops. We have 70 plus. So because of that, this education pivoted and we created these workshops, right? Another thing I would say, bro, is like if you've got a good relationship with your suppliers and you're buying them from suppliers who do import them, ask them questions like, "Hey, what are you seeing?" Like get their
Mm,
feedback, get their thoughts, because they would know, right? The earlier you know, the better you can prepare.
yeah,
Okay. But
yeah, bro.
I think most of all, bro, like honestly, just don't panic. Try and be flexible. Pivot if you have to. Don't be afraid to pivot if you have to. Okay. Now that's how Kiwi businesses survive. We adapt fast. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
Cool.
man. Nah, cool. Nah, I really like what you're saying, and I totally agree with it. And if anything that I have to share is probably around the same stuff. And I think specifically for me is actually understand what value you provide.
Yeah.
To your point, right? We talked about some of these luxury brands. The main thing that they provide is status, right? You buy this thing, there's a perceived status that certain people will hold if they bought some of these things, right? If people didn't know, there's other three. So one is status, the other is around money. Can you make or save people money?
Mm,
The other one is can you save people time? And then the last one is can you increase quality of life? So for me, the main thing that I would say for people is that actually really look into what value do you provide and can you increase those? Because if you can increase value, and the price in which people have to pay is so little compared to that value. And you can make it as quantifiable if you want, go all the way down to the dollar mark, but really it's about status. You can't really quantify status. It's a perceived thing, and that's where brand comes into it, right? That's where if your brand or what you produce has this type of let's use the young kid language because I'm starting to get old. If it has this aura to it, people are going to buy into that aura, buy into that movement. So yeah, that's kind of one thing that I would say is really look into how can I increase the value I provide, because then what we charge is going to be a lot easier. And then I'm going to cheat here a little bit and say we had a conversation in our last week around AI.
mm,
Use AI to help you with that. So put
exactly.
to AI, this is what I offer, this is what I do, how can I increase my value in those four different ways, or which one makes sense? And then it'll give you perspective on like, oh, actually, these are things I can consider to add to my business. So I do that with clients and show them how to kind of go through that. But that's going to be really important, not even just for the tariffs, but just in general. Like, how do I continuously increase the value I offer? Because then people will have no problems with paying me.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of what we did with that one. So, as part of our strategy, obviously, with strategy, when you're planning 3, 5 years ahead, you're thinking about the future. How do you plan 3, 5 years ahead? You've got to do a lot of research, right?
Mhm.
You go look what's in the market, look at your competitors, look at your current offering, look at your strengths, look at your weaknesses, look at the opportunities, kind of like a PESTO analysis, which is an environmental scan understand of your market, your business, and then also an internal analysis, which is your SWOT analysis, right? Your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So what we did, because education, we're like, a model, a lot of it is heavily dependent on funding and government. And government, it's hard, you can't control that. Like government can cut funding, they can change, blah, 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 all of that, and then affect your business model, right? So what we had to discuss as a team was like, how do we commercialize some of this stuff so that we, businesses can pay for it directly, right? So this is where we did our research, and this is how AI came into play. So we did all this research. We got all the information online, our own research. We threw it into ChatGPT, and we said, "Look, do more research around this topic, right?" And it did its thing, and we said, "Can you create a SWOT analysis for us based on this?" And it created a SWOT analysis, and it did all this research for us, bro, and help us, analyze our internal strengths and weaknesses, and then it highlighted some great opportunities. And because of that, that's where our skill up workshops, our skill up workshops came about. That's where it was born. We created 70 plus workshops that fit into these 5 categories: digital, well-being, leadership, financial, leadership, and 70 plus 2-hour workshops, bro. And people are buying them. Like we had one client who prepaid 25 workshops, bro. Um, and I was like, dang, but that goes to show the beauty of AI, knowing what you want to get from it, and then actually executing on it. Okay, so that, yeah, look, that's a long version, but the more of the story is, coming back to your point, Tyrone, is leverage AI to help you in these challenging situations or any challenge at all.
Yeah, totally, man. No, I agree. So, again, it's um, there's you shouldn't feel like you might feel challenged by what's coming, and how they might affect your business. But there are tools, there are things out there, there are people like ourselves that are kind of talking to you about it, and also can do some work with you around it. But there are ways to get out of this, and I think for me, it's coming back to that increased value. Once you increase the value of what you can provide, prices and all that are second to it. So yeah, that's what I'll share. And I guess, yeah, that's us for this week, bro. I don't have much else to share. We're still coming up with a name. We'll get there, people. We're trying to come up and brainstorm some names. But if you've got some, let us know. And hopefully next week you'll see our name now on our content and all that. But we'll get there.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna make it a priority. We need a name. We need a name. But if anything, bro, even without one, Sheiks, I'm really enjoying this, eh? And
Yeah,
I hope that you, audience, are really finding a lot of value in this conversation. And if there's any problem or challenge that you're struggling with, let us know so that we
hmm
could talk to it and help you find solutions to it as well. And I think if there's anything I want to leave with everyone just in terms of this topic, bro, is like, you're not powerless, right?
hmm
You be adaptable, right? Yes, tariffs, inflation, global politics, you can't control all of that. But what you can do is control your mindset, your
mm
offers, and how you serve or add value to your people and your customers, just like Tyrone was saying, right? Review your service packages. Can you pivot or simplify one of them? Offer a digital version or break it into a more micro size, a lighter version of it, right? But don't give up. Me and Tyrone are here. We're your biggest cheerleaders. We want you to win in both business and life. You got this.
100%. Nah, we'll leave with that. And yeah, that's us for this week, and we'll see you all next week.
Awesome.
Peace.
Peace.